Hi, and welcome to Dynamics 365 Talk. This is the second video on this topic where I will be showing some of the new features that will become available under Release Wave 2, which is the fall release. System admins can currently opt in to get access to these features. So if you haven't seen the first video yet, be sure to check out my YouTube channel or go ahead and check out my website. I have the video posted there as well. You can also follow me on Twitter. My handle is D365 Goddess. So in this video, I'll be talking about the timeline enhancements, the knowledge authoring templates, inline image editing for knowledge-based articles, knowledge search updates, quick create form where we can now save and create a new record, view inline images while reading email, and the header enhancements. So I wanted to start by talking about the timeline enhancement. So you kind of see immediately that the records in the timeline kind of seem more compressed, right? So we can really see more records in the same amount of space. We also see that the title, the date, and the description fields are displayed in the view, and then the icon from the activity type has now been moved here to the right side. You also see when I kind of hover over this activity, it gives me some options here, right? I can close this activity, I can assign it to somebody else, I can add it to a queue, I can open the entity record, or I can just go ahead and delete that record. I can also expand the activity, as you can see, by just clicking on it. And if I click on it again, that will collapse it back to the previous side. Now, filtering has also been updated. So if I go ahead and click this filter pane over here, and I'm going to give it a second to load those filters, you see that we have a lot more options now that we can filter by. Plus, we can use some of these filters simultaneously as well. Right, so for example, I can filter by record types. Maybe I just want to see the activities. I can just go ahead and click that. And maybe there is a particular activity type that I want to filter on, for example, email. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So you can see that it makes it a lot easier, right? That I can now just go ahead and filter by multiple filters versus just one. When we navigate to personal options, just go ahead and go to personalization settings. You can see that under the email tab, you now also have the ability for on the unified interface to show emails as a conversation on the timeline. So this is where you can turn that on or off. Dynamics 365 will now be shipped with several out-of-the-box knowledge templates, which basically allows some of these authors to very quickly create an article by using a template, right? Now, keep in mind that knowledge authoring templates are a different entity and you can't really get to it from here. So this is probably something that you want to add right here to the sitemap. So if I go ahead and I navigate here to knowledge article templates, and let me just do all of them. We currently see here that I have one knowledge-based template, right? And you can create new ones from here as well. Like I said, it's probably a good idea to add it here to the sitemap as well so you can get to it a little bit easier. But let me just go ahead and open up one of those so you can kind of see what that looks like. So very simple, right? Again, we're just going to be using this as a template. We need to select a language here, and then we can just put some content in here so that when we're creating these new articles, by using a template, it's going to be a lot more consistent, right? So that's kind of where that comes into place. So let me just go ahead and create a new article. You can see here that I have the new from template button. So I can just go ahead and click here the new from content. I can put in a title. It's also going to tell me that I need to actually go ahead and choose a template. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see here that it immediately copies over the title and the content in here as well. And then I can just start editing my knowledge article and then saving that to the system. Now, the next feature I can't really demo because this is actually not a feature that is available in the early access, but I did want to talk about it a little bit. So with this inline image editing for KB articles, it's going to be a lot easier to use copy and paste, drag and drop, and resizing the images directly from within that knowledge base article. So it's very similar to what users can do today, for example, in Word, right? We can resize it by just dragging the corners. So we're also going to be able to upload the images from the file explorer versus, having to save the image somewhere else. That's what we're actually doing today, right? If I click here on image, it's going to ask me to put in a URL, or I can just go ahead and put in a link here, and then I can add the image to my article in there. So that's going to be another nice feature as well. Let's move on to knowledge search. And this is really from this perspective of being in a record and then accessing the knowledge base articles. So let's go ahead and open a case here. So you can see that there's a lot more room, right, to now show these articles over here. Before, we wouldn't be able to see that much content. We also have the ability to go ahead and filter. So let's just go ahead and pull up that filter pane. And it's very similar to what we saw in the timeline filtering as well. So I can just go ahead and change the status that I'm filtering by, right? Is this an internal or an external document? You saw earlier that we have that field now. And then what date, right? I want to filter by. And then obviously this is what we saw earlier, right? We were able to pick a language. So now we can just go ahead and filter on those languages as well. This is another nice update. So if we actually want to go ahead and use the quick create form to create any of these records, so let's just go ahead and say we're going to create a new case. We now actually have the ability to, after we entered the fields, the data in the fields, we can actually save and close that record, but we also have the ability to just go ahead and save that record and then have the form load again so we can create a new record. So this is definitely going to be some time savings here, right? Beforehand, you would just have to save and close that and then go back to that button and again, click on the entity that you want to create a record for. So in the earlier versions, images and emails were only available as attachments. And if users wanted to actually view the images, they would have to open the attachment. So with this feature, they're going to be able to view the images while reading the emails in Dynamics 365, just like they would if they would read the email in Outlook. And I don't have an example of that in my environment, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you a screenshot. So you can see that this just looks like a regular email that we would read in our Outlook client, right? But you can see here that we are reading that email with the images, with everything directly in Dynamics 365. There are also some new options available for form headers in this fall release. Admins now have the choice between configuration for form headers, and you can do a high density with read-only fields. So what that means is this is actually a high density that has a flyout as well. But if you did not have that flyout, all you would have is obviously the max of 4 fields above here on that header. And you can see that I cannot edit these fields. I would actually have to go to the form itself to go ahead and edit those. Now, again, you can also do a high density with a flyout, and you can put, as you can see, many fields on that flyout, right? And from here, I can configure whether or not I want to be able to go ahead and update these fields. So, for example, if I wanted to be able to update this customer, this account type field, again, that's a configuration that you can do, just like you usually would do, right? Whether or not a header field is read only or not. But again, the header fields that you see over here, those four, if you have the high density configured, they're going to be read only and people are not going to be able to update them. The other thing that's important here is that users are always going to be able to see those fields, meaning that these fields are not going to be truncated. Also, the record title will not be truncated. So if the title is long, then you're just going to see this data being displayed by using multiple lines. Now, the other thing that you see here is that the form selector, which is right over here, right, depending on what account form I'm looking at, either the account or the sales insights form, has also been moved. So we can see that that's now actually under the record title, right? So this is the title of my record, A Datum Corporation, and then underneath there, I have my form switcher, the ability to change to a different form. If you're using the low density headers, those are basically just the same experience that we were used to prior to the October 2019 release wave. So that just stays the same what we were used to. Now, the configuration for these headers will need to be done from the new form designer. So you need to go ahead and log into the Power App section here. That's make.powerapps.com. And then you can go ahead and expand this data. I'm going to go to entities. And then I can just go ahead and pick the entity that I want to work on. I'm going to navigate to forms. And let me go back to my sales insights form. Then I'm just going to go ahead and click on the header. And this is where you can configure whether or not to use a high density header or not. So if I uncheck this, this is basically going back to being a low density header. You can kind of also look at this. So it kind of shows you that it helps display more data. And I can also decide whether or not I want to show that flyout directly from here. Now, for the fields that are on the header, I can just go ahead and click on those fields. And as you can see, this is where you can make them read only. For example, if you're using, like I said, the low density, then this will determine whether or not people can actually update the values in there. And then I can go ahead and click on the field in my flyout. And again, I'm going to be able to make some of those updates directly in there. So this concludes my video on Dynamics 365 2019 Release Wave 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe to my blog as well, or just follow me on Twitter. And thank you guys so much for watching.